It's time now for our Down to Earth segment and staying in Iran as we take a deeper look at the country's environmental woes. Recent protests have erupted over economic collapse and political repression, but beneath the discontent, analysts also point to a deeper ecological crisis. For more on this, I'm joined by Valerie Dekimpe. Valerie, we know the recent wave of protests erupted after a long period of planned water cuts. Have water shortages fueled political instability?
Well, that's what some analysts are saying, that we should also be looking at the ecological, environmental factors behind the discontent in Iran, and many pointing to water shortages. The country has been gripped by a very severe drought for the past 6 years, and many cities are now on the verge of what experts call water day zero or water bankruptcy, a limit beyond which water supply systems essentially collapse, and there's no more water available. And the most dramatic symbol of that situation, water shortages, is the capital itself, Tehran. And that's because several of the reservoirs supplying the city of 10 million people are now, very close to being completely dried out. And so 5 major reservoirs supply the capital there. And according to a research by the Center of Strategic and International Studies, from June to November of last year, those reservoirs, water levels fell to very dangerous low levels. They used satellite images to visualize what exactly that meant, what the drought has really created in those areas. And what you see there, for example, is one of the reservoirs, Lar, in June, and just a couple of months later, that's what it looks like, losing about 70% of its volume. So really very severe drought. And it has reached a point in Iran in which authorities are now even considering moving the capital, Tehran, from the north of the country to southern coastal areas, remote areas, which are known to be wetter as well. That could cost about $100 billion. But of course, with the current national and geopolitical crisis, there hasn't been a lot of more details on whether this would actually happen or not in the future.
All right, so how did Iran get to this point? Climate change or mismanagement?
Well, it's both. I mean, from a scientific perspective, of course, the data shows us that average temperatures in cities in Iran have risen twice as fast as the global rate. Rainfall levels also dropping in Iran. But the scientific community, which has been silenced when it comes to water shortages, is also very clear on saying that this is the result of decades of mismanagement in Iran. We were talking about dams earlier. So Iran went on a dam building spree in the 20th century, becoming one of the biggest dam builders in the world. The reason being is that they wanted to respond to growing water demand in cities. But what eventually happened was quite the opposite, and that created many of the problems that they are facing today. Dams were built on rivers too small to sustain them, and so that has increased the loss of water with evaporation as well in very large surface areas, and that has also limited the flow of water downstream. And so it has exacerbated, it really made the problem worse in many ways. Underground and deep aquifers, the situation is even worse. The country being shut from global trade, Iran very quickly went on a strategy of food security and food self-sufficiency. That meant the government heavily subsidized the use, agricultural water use. And as a result, agriculture is now responsible for 90% of the country's water demand. And that is really huge. And so that led to farmers, building more wells, extracting more water from deep aquifers, pumping more and more. And that has led to a situation where there were almost twice as many wells in Iran now than a decade ago. And so you see there a vicious circle of more overpumping and aquifers becoming drier and drier.
All right, so Valerie, can Iran recover from such severe water stress?
Well, many scientists say that Iran should look to its past for answers. More than 2,000 years ago, Iran designed highly sophisticated water collecting systems called qanats. So it's a vast network of 70,000 tunnels, as you can see in these images behind me, stretching for nearly 250,000 miles across the country. And they were used to pump water from aquifers. How they worked is that they were built in hillsides, and the idea being to tap underground water and it would flow naturally by gravity to places where it's needed. They were progressively abandoned and in favor of more modern infrastructure, but actually the system of qanats is inherently more sustainable than wells that can lead to overpumping because they naturally regulate the flow of aquifer levels, and so they prevent overpumping. And so now there are calls by scientists to restore and repair many of those qanats, in an effort to, make the water systems more sustainable in the country. Now, the problem, of course, is that many of those qanats have been dried out because there is overpumping and because the aquifer levels are so low. And so you can restore these, but it will only work as long as, you put an end to illegal wells, and that really is something that is being done for overpumping. But this is something that scientists say could be a potential solution in the future.
All right, Valerie Dekimpe, our environment editor, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Karis.